Sahana Vavatu, Sahano Bhunaktu, Sahaviryan Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Om. Good. Welcome back to the webcast of my weekly class on Bhagavad Gita. We continue our study of Chapter 3, Karma Yoga, and we begin, as always, with a little bit of recitation. Be sure to glance at the meaning and then repeat after me. We'll start with verse 25. Sakta karmanya vidvanso, Sakta karmanya vidvanso, Yatha kurvanti bharata, Yatha kurvanti bharata, Kuryad vidvams tatha saktash, Kuryad vidvams tatha saktash, Chikir shur loka sangraham, Chikir shur loka sangraham. Na buddhi bhedam janayet, na buddhi bhedam janayet, ajnanam karma sanginam, ajnanam karma sanginam, joshayet sarva karmani, joshayet sarva karmani, vidvan yukta samacharan, vidvan yukta samacharam, prakrite kriyamanani, prakrite kriyamanani, gunai karmani sarvashaha, gunai karmani sarvashaha, ahankara vimudhatma, ahankara vimudhatma, kartahamiti manyate, kartahamiti manyate, tattvavittu mahabaho, tattvavittu mahabaho, gunakarma vibhagayoho, gunakarma vibhagayoho, guna guneshu vartanta, guna guneshu vartanta, iti matva na sajjate, iti matva na sajjate, prakritir guna sammudhaha, prakritir guna sammudhaha, sajjante guna karmasu, sajjante guna karmasu, Thana kritsna vido mandan, Thana kritsna vido mandan, kritsna vinna vichalayeta, kritsna vinna vichalayeta, Mayi sarvani karmani, Mayi sarvani karmani, Sanyasyadhyatma chetasa, Sanyasyadhyatma chetasa, Nirashir nirmamo bhutva, Nirashir nirmamo bhutva, Yudhyasva vigata jvaraha, Yudhyasva vigata jvaraha, Ye me matamidam nityam, Ye me matamidam nityam, Anutishtanti manavaha, Anutishtanti manavaha, Shraddhavanto nasuyanto, Shraddhavanto nasuyanto, Muchyante tepi karmabhihi, Muchyante tepi karmabhihi. Very good. Let's return to, yes, verse 27 we begin with today. And the context, we're in the midst of this chapter in Karma Yoga, and just to put our feet on a firm foundation before we proceed, Karma yoga, as you know very well from our prior discussions, karma yoga is not one thing, but a whole set of strategies. It's a set of strategies to help us use our day-to-day activities to promote our spiritual growth, to convert, as it were, our daily activities into a form of sadhana, spiritual practice. In general, we can say that those strategies in general are adopting a prayerful attitude towards our actions in various ways. And specifically in today's class, we're going to see another attitude, another strategy, and that is, while we're engaged in action, to recognize Ishvara, the God of the universe, Ishvara as a one who gives us the skill and power and intelligence that we employ while we're engaged in any action. And that's the prayerful attitude. It'll be described in the next sequence of verses. So let's begin that here with verse 27. Prakrite kriyamanani, prakrite kriyamanani, gunai karmani sarvashaha, gunai karmani sarvashaha, ahankara vimudhatma, ahankara vimudhatma, kartahamiti manyate, kartahamiti manyate. Excuse me. Good. Start in the second line. Karmani. Actions. Actions which are in a second line. Kriyamanani. Being done. Actions which we do. Actions which are being done. We have to link up all these words. Sarvashaha, being done in all ways, in all manners. All of these actions being done are kriyamanani, being done. They are performed gunaihi, with the gunas, with the qualities, due to the qualities, prakritehi, of prakriti, of nature. We have to connect all these words scattered about. Prakritehe gunaihi. Let me explain that. Prakriti, nature. Nature means the laws that govern the universe. The laws that govern the universe, as we've discussed before, are Ishvara's laws, God's laws. Ishvara's intelligence pervades the universe as the laws of nature. So we could say that the law of gravity, present right now, that makes this paper fall down, we can say that that is evidence of Ishvara's intelligent order. According to Ishvara's intelligent order, objects fall downwards. We call that laws of nature. But let's remember, laws of nature have a source, have an author. The author or source of the laws of nature is Ishvara, God. And guna, qualities, you will remember from prior classes that we said that the ancient worldview was very different from the modern scientific worldview. Modern scientific worldview is that the universe consists of matter and energy. So instead of matter and energy in ancient times, they thought of the universe in terms of three gunas, three principles. Sattva, the principle of balance; Rajas, the principle of activity; and Tamas, the principle of lethargy, inertia. We could spend hours and hours talking about these three principles, but that's not our point here. So here, guna refers to the laws, prakritehe, of nature. So here, gunaihi prakritehe, according to the laws of nature, according to the principle, guna, principle or law, according to the principles of nature, according to the laws of nature, gunaihi prakritehi, karmani, the actions we do, sarvashaha, all of the actions we do, kriyamanani, are done. All of the actions we do are done according to the laws of nature. That means laws of nature, right now the action I'm doing is teaching. In order to teach, my mind has to work very hard. My mouth has to make intelligent sounds, and whatever thoughts are in my mind has to come out of my mouth, hopefully, in an intelligent and understandable manner. Well, all of that complicated process, it goes on according to the laws of nature, according to the principles of nature. The laws of nature, which are whose laws? Ishvara's laws. So my ability to teach right now continues to function according to the laws of nature, according to Ishvara's intelligent order. Because I am blessed by that intelligence, which is Ishvara's intelligence, only because I'm blessed with Ishvara's intelligence am I able to teach. Because we are all blessed with Ishvara's intelligence, we can function in the world. That's what the first half describes. Of course, not everyone has that perspective. There are a great number of people who are quite atheistic in their outlook, and such people are described in the second half of the verse, where Sri Krishna says, ahankara vimudha atma. Those people who don't acknowledge Ishvara as the source of intelligence through which we're able to function in life, those people here are called ahankara vimudha atma. Vimudha, deluded. Vimudha atma can't be deluded, so atma here means mind. Not infrequently, throughout the Bhagavad Gita, the word atma can mean mind in certain contexts, like it does here. So vimudhatma, one whose mind is deluded by what? Ahankara. And here ahankara simply in the meaning of pride. So someone who is deluded by pride, deluded by egotism, what does that person think? Manyate, in the last line, that person thinks kartaham iti. That person thinks aham, I am the karta. I am the sole agent of action. Kartaham iti, I am the sole agent of action. Someone who is incapable of recognizing how blessed we are by Ishvara's intelligent order. Due to Ishvara's intelligent order, our brains work. Something that I find particularly amazing. The most complicated organism in the universe that we know about is a human brain. And what makes it complex is not merely its billions of synapses, billions of neurons. Neurons are the cells that comprise the brain. But the neurons are interconnected. And these interconnections form billions and billions of synapses. These interconnections between the neurons. It is infinitely complex. That complexity is Ishvara's glory. You and I and every human being, we have all been tremendously blessed with these powerful minds and bodies as well, but we'll stay with mind. But being blessed with these powerful minds, there are so many who fail to acknowledge Ishvara's blessing, the mind and brain as a blessing of Ishvara, and failing to recognize it, they hold themselves to be the sole agent of whatever they do. Kartaham iti. So this is what Sri Krishna calls them ahankara vimudhatma. Their minds are deluded by pride, and they think, I am the sole agent of what I do. Whatever I do without any support. How short-sighted! Not just in this more spiritual sense, but even in a worldly sense. Whatever we accomplish in life, we don't do it on our own. First of all, we couldn't have done anything if it weren't for our parents. Without our parents, we wouldn't be here. And then what about all the teachers you've had from childhood onwards? Without all that education, where would we be? Whatever we accomplish in life, we certainly don't accomplish it on our own. So here, Sri Krishna is highly critical in the second half of anyone who fails to acknowledge all the blessings we've received that empower us to function in the ways that we function. Sri Krishna continues. Tattva vittu mahabaho, tattva vittu mahabaho, guna karma vibhagayoho, guna karma vibhagayoho, guna guneshu vartanta, guna guneshu vartanta, iti matva na sajjate, iti matva na sajjate. So here Sri Krishna gives the opposite. In a prior verse, he concluded by talking about those who are deluded with ego, and now he gives the opposite. Tattva vittu mahabaho. Mahabaho, O mighty armed Arjuna, tu. But tattva vit, one who knows reality, one who knows the truth, the wise. The ones who know what? In second line, guna, karma, vibhagayoho. The ones who know vibhagayoho, individually they know about two things. What do they know about? Guna, qualities, and karma, action. In a prior verse, we saw that the gunas of nature, the qualities of nature, the principles of nature, or better, we just say it, the laws of nature. The laws of nature, which are Ishvara's laws, empower us to perform karma. So here guna refers to those laws of nature, which are Ishvara's laws, and karma refers to the actions that we are empowered to do as a result of Ishvara's intelligent order. So Tattvavid here is one who understands Vibhaga Yoho, both of these factors, who understands the laws of nature, Ishvara's laws, Ishvara's intelligent order, and they understand how karma, the deeds we are able to perform, are facilitated by Ishvara's intelligent order. And what is their attitude? The attitude in the prior line, look at the difference. Prior line says, Kartaham iti, I am the sole agent of action. But here in this verse, iti, thus the wise think. What do the wise think? Gunaha guneshu vartante. And undoing the grammatical changes of sandhi. Due to grammatical changes, gunaha becomes guna. Due to these grammatical changes, vartante becomes vartanta. So, gunaha, the laws of nature, guneshu vartante, they function. Maybe I shouldn't use laws of nature here. Gunaha, the qualities of nature, the principles of nature, vartante, function, guneshu, among the principles of nature. It sounds funny. The principles of nature function according to the principles of nature, which is a way of saying whatever happens according to the laws of nature. As we've said before, laws of nature are an expression of Ishvara's intelligence. Iti, thus, thus think, iti matva, thinking thus. The wise ones, na sajate, a wise one, is not bound. Na sajate is not bound by their actions. And do we want to talk? We're going to, actually there's a longer discussion about the bondage here. I want to hold off on this idea of bondage. We'll come to it in just a moment. But here, Sri Krishna describes this prayerful attitude, as we said in the introduction. One simple way of understanding karma yoga is to have a prayerful attitude towards all our actions. And one way of adopting that prayerful attitude is to acknowledge Ishvara as the source of the intelligence and skills and capacities and powers through which we act and function in the world. Every time I sit to teach, I am profoundly moved by the recognition that whatever I have to teach is given to me, and whatever skills I have to teach is given to me. So whatever I have to teach is given to me by my Guru, by Puja Swami Tadatmananda. And whatever skills of teaching I have are also given to me. This is Ishvara's blessings. I can't take, and I don't mean this metaphorically, I can't take credit for a thing. It's all given to me. The teachings are given to me. The ability to teach is given to me. It's all given. And I am so incredibly grateful for what I'm given. And this makes, for me, this makes teaching a form of karma yoga. As we know, you can teach for different reasons. In a college classroom, there are plenty of professors who teach for the sake of a paycheck. There are plenty of even spiritual teachers who teach not for the sake of a paycheck. Some of them teach as a way of gaining money, we know that. But even those who don't teach for the sake of gaining money, many like to be a popular teacher. Many like they like being highly regarded. The point I'm making is there are many kinds of motivation for teaching. But here, this recognition that whatever a teacher has to teach is given, and whatever skills of teaching is given, this orientation, this attitude, shifts the motivation entirely. And the attitude, I think, that arises most often is just a prayerful sense of gratitude. Gratitude, in my case, gratitude to my teacher, my Guru, for all that he taught me, and gratitude, of course, to Ishvara for whatever skills I have in teaching. Okay, this is karma yoga. Then, Prakritir guna sammudhaha, Prakritir guna sammudhaha, Sajjante guna karmasu, Sajjante guna karmasu, Thana kritsnavido mandan, Thana kritsnavido mandan, Kritsnavinna vichalayeta, Kritsnavinna vichalayeta. So in a prior verse, we saw that last part. Nasajjate, the wise one is not bound. And I didn't explain that because it's explained so nicely in the next verse. And here, Sri Krishna says, Prakritehe guna sammudhaha. Sammudhaha, those who are deluded. Deluded about what? Guna, the qualities of nature, the laws of nature. Prakritehe guna, the laws of nature. Those who are deluded about the qualities of nature, who are deluded about the laws of nature, the ones who hold themselves to be the sole agent of whatever they do, and also the sole author of the fruits of whatever they do. The ones who think, we saw 2 verses before, kartaham, I did it. I am the sole agent and author of my deeds. Such people, sajjante, they are bound, guna karmasu, they are bound by the karmas, by the actions they perform, which are driven by guna qualities. Now we have the guna karmasu, they are bound by the actions they perform due to the laws of nature. So I'm consistent in my language here. This is that egoistic way of thinking where we ignore the fact that we're given whatever we do because we are given the capacity to do it. But there are so many who don't appreciate that fact. They have this egoistic orientation of being the sole agent and author of their works. And Sri Krishna warns against that. In fact, back in chapter 2, when we began our study of Karma Yoga, there's a verse that's quoted more than any other verse in the Bhagavad Gita, karmanyeva adhikaraste ma paleshu kadachana, verse 47 in chapter 2, and it says, karmani eva te adhikaraha, you have control over your actions, ma paleshu, you have no control over the results. Everyone quotes the first half of that verse. The next half of the verse contains something equally important. Generally, that part is not quoted. The second half of the verse begins, ma karma pala hetur bhuhu. Ma bhuhu. Don't think, don't assume the attitude that you are the karma pala hetu, that you are the author of the fruits of your deeds. Don't consider yourself to be the author of the fruits of your deeds. This is going back to an earlier aspect of Karma Yoga we saw before, back in chapter 2. You might remember we had a rather lengthy discussion about acknowledging Ishvara to be the karma pala data. Remember that expression? Karma pala data, the giver of karma pala, the giver of the fruits of our deeds, the giver of the results of our actions. That was a crucial aspect of Karma Yoga, is to realize that we can act, but it is Ishvara from whom we receive the fruits of our actions, the results of our actions. We commit a deed, the results come according to the laws of nature. Here we go again. Laws of nature are whose laws? Ishvara's laws. According to Ishvara's intelligent order, we receive the results of our deeds. And to recognize that is another important aspect of Karma Yoga. Here Sri Krishna is talking about those who are guna samudhaha, who are deluded about that, who fail to recognize Ishvara both as the one who gives us the intelligence and power and capacity to function, and the one who gives us the fruits of our deeds. I have to illustrate this with an anecdote. Over the years, I've had, it turns out that Many students I've had have been medical doctors, and especially medical doctors of Indian origin. It turns out in this country, in the United States, a great many medical doctors are of Indian origin, and most of them are Hindu. And being Hindu, most of them incorporate into their thinking this particular aspect of karma yoga. Specifically, most Hindu medical doctors are very conscious of the fact that they can administer the best possible treatment to the patient. But these doctors know very well that regardless of the quality of the treatment they give to the patient, the outcome of the case is not in their hands at all. The outcome of the case is in Ishvara's hands. The outcome of the case is according to the laws of nature, which are Ishvara's laws. So these medical doctors who incorporate into their thinking these crucial teachings of karma yoga, they are so clear that their job is to administer the best possible treatment for their patients. But they simultaneously recognize that the outcome of that treatment is not in their hands. The outcome is in Ishvara's hands. But here, Sri Krishna is giving the counter case, the case of those. Imagine a doctor who doesn't acknowledge that the outcome is in Ishvara's hands. Imagine a doctor who administers the best treatment and feels strongly that because they have diagnosed properly what is the illness, and because they have administered the best treatment possible to their patient, they feel that their intelligence and their actions will ensure that this patient will recover. And then the patient dies. How will that affect that medical doctor? That medical doctor who is so proud of their ability to diagnose the illness and to prescribe this best treatment for the patient, and then the patient dies. And of course, the doctor holds himself or herself personally responsible for the death of the patient. And this is bondage. He says, sajjante, those people, those deluded ones, sajjante, are bound, guna karmasu, are bound by the deeds they perform. The bondage is this bondage to a life of suffering. By failing to recognize that the outcome is in Ishvara's hands, those very egoistic doctors are bound to a life of suffering every time a patient doesn't do as well as they think the patient should do. That physician will hold himself or herself responsible and suffer as a consequence. And please note that occasionally somebody will argue, but that'll make that person a better physician. If they make a mistake and recognize their mistake, they'll do even better next time. Every physician is going to do their best all the time. They don't need to lose a patient in order to be a better doctor. Not needed. So it's a fallacious argument to say that when we suffer, that suffering drives us to do better. We're driven to do better even without suffering. We don't need to suffer to be driven to do better. Suffering makes us miserable. Suffering is what we want to come out of, and that's the purpose of these teachings. Okay, let's finish this. Tan akritsna vidaha mandan. Oh, Sri Krishna now goes on to make another point, kind of tangential point. Tan, those who we were talking about in the first half of the verse, those who are deluded by their egotism to think they are the sole agent and author of their actions. So tan mandan, those harsh language, mandan, dull-witted, those foolish, okay, those foolish people, akritsna vidaha, those people who, literally, akritsna vidaha means those who don't understand completely, literally what it means. Akritsna vidaha, those who don't understand completely. Tan mandan, those foolish, ignorant people, what about them? Kritsnavit, one who understands completely, na vichalayet, should not disturb. Starting on the last line, kritsnavit, someone who understands properly, someone who understands Ishvara's blessings in the form of intelligence and skill and ability, someone who recognizes Ishvara as the karma paladata, as a giver of the fruits of action. That wise person, kritsnavit, that person who understands fully, na vichalayet, should not disturb tan mandan, those foolish, egotistic people who are akritsnavit, who don't understand completely. And this brings up something that often happens, and that is students of Vedanta who observe family members and friends who fail. Staying with this topic. Suppose you happen to observe a family member or friend acting in a very non-spiritual way. Meaning, you observe a family member or friend with that egotistic orientation, I did it. I am the sole author and agent of my deeds. You see a family member or friend with that attitude, suppose you take it upon yourself to correct them. You give them a lecture based on your understanding of the Bhagavad Gita. You start to lecture them. You already know that it's not going to go well. They're going to reject, almost always, they're going to reject whatever you attempt to tell them, because they're not ready to hear that. Before we can receive these teachings of Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, before we can receive these teachings of Karma Yoga, we have to be ready. And to be ready for the teachings of Karma Yoga requires a lot of spiritual maturity. As a minimum, it requires the recognition that no amount of worldly effort can ever result in perfect peace and contentment. This is a fundamental prerequisite for being able to receive these teachings. Now, that family member or friend, chances are, has yet to come to that conclusion. The conclusion that, in fact, they've made the opposite conclusion. Their conclusion is, if I work hard enough in life, I can create a condition of perfect peace and contentment for myself. And of course, that conclusion is wrong. It's pure delusion. But if a friend or family member has that conclusion, you're not going to be able to shake that conclusion loose, shake them loose of that conclusion. They have to learn that lesson for themselves. I think this is a lesson we all learn we meaning anyone who's on a spiritual path, we all learn the hard way that no amount of effort in life will ever culminate in perfect peace and contentment. The only way to learn that is to go out there into the world and try and fail. Try to build that life of perfect contentment and peace and fail in that attempt to gain perfect peace and contentment. We learn so much from that failure. And what we learn makes us ready for these teachings. On the other hand, someone who has yet to learn that lesson is not ready for these teachings. And that's why Sri Krishna says, Kritsnavit, one who has understood these spiritual principles properly, na vichalayet, should not disturb tan mandan, those foolish people, akritsnavidaha, who don't understand completely, those foolish people who are still fully committed to worldly life, to not worldly life is the wrong expression. Those foolish people who are still attempting to find perfect peace and contentment through purely worldly activities. So, better, if a friend or family member has that attitude, don't give them a lecture. Give them a hug, give them a pat on the back, give them a cup of tea, encourage them, give them some comfort. Please don't give them a lecture. It won't be satisfying for you, and it won't help them. Okay, enough. Let's continue. Mayi sarvani karmani, Mayi sarvani karmani, Sanyasyadhyatma chetasa, Sanyasyadhyatma chetasa, Nirashir nirmamo bhutva, Nirashir nirmamo bhutva, Yudhyasva vigatajvaraha, Yudhyasva vigatajvaraha. Here Sri Krishna makes it very clear. Mayi, unto me, sarvani karmani, all your deeds, all your actions, sanyasya, having renounced all your actions unto me. Now, when Sri Krishna says Mayi, me, he's speaking not as Arjuna's charioteer, he's speaking from the perspective of Ishvara. So Mayi means unto Ishvara. Unto me, unto Ishvara, sarvani karmani, all of your deeds, sanyasya, having renounced. And here, having renounced doesn't mean giving up the deeds. It means recognizing, as we just discussed, recognizing that whatever you do, you're able to do because you are blessed by Ishvara. Ishvara's intelligent order has blessed you with the skill, with the ability, with the power to do whatever you do. That acknowledgement is what he means by sannyasya. Having renounced means having acknowledged that sarvani karmani, that all of your deeds are done according to Ishvara's intelligent order. Laws of nature, which are Ishvara's order. And you do this how? Adhyatma chetasa. You do this with a chetas, with your mind, which is adhyatma. That really, the best translation for adhyatma is spiritual. Adhyatma, with regard to atma, with regard to your true self, meaning with a spiritual orientation. So with this spiritual orientation, more specifically, attitude of karma yoga, that's our whole topic here. So adhyatma chetasa, with this spiritual orientation, with this attitude of karma yoga, sannyasya, acknowledging that Ishvara is the one who empowers you to do all actions, and as a result, you develop a prayerful attitude. When you acknowledge Ishvara as the one who bestows upon you all these powers and capacities and abilities, intelligence, when you acknowledge Ishvara as the source of all that you can do, naturally you'll feel a sense of prayerful gratitude towards Ishvara. That prayerful sense is the essence of karma yoga here. And having acknowledged Ishvara as the source of all of your skills and abilities, and in the third line, bhutva, having become nirashihi, free from desire, and nirmamaha, free from possessiveness. Becoming free from desire and free from possessiveness. Here we're talking about a person on a path of spiritual growth who gradually rises above this conventional worldly orientation. The conventional worldly orientation, as you recall, is when all of our actions are driven by raga and dvesha, when we are the slaves of raga, dvesha. Raga, that voice inside that compels you to do certain things. Dvesha, that voice inside that compels you to avoid certain things. Slaves we are to raga, dvesha, but here Sri Krishna describes that with these strategies of karma yoga, bhutva, one becomes nirashihi, free from desire, and nirmamaha, free from minus, literally free from minus, free from possessiveness. And with that attitude, now he addresses Arjuna. Remember, this whole discussion is addressing Arjuna. Sri Krishna tells Arjuna, with this attitude, our paraphrase of first three lines, recognizing me as the source of all of your skills and abilities, and becoming free from desire and possessiveness. Therefore, Arjuna, yudhyasva, you should fight. You should fight how? You should go ahead onto the, remember, Arjuna's dharma, his duty, is to go ahead and fight this war. But Arjuna should do so, Sri Krishna says, vigata jvaraha, free from jvara. Now, jvara literally means fever. And fever often means anger. So you should go ahead and fight free from anger, and which makes perfect sense. But here the commentator gives a little different twist on it. He says jvara in this context means sorrow. And that actually makes more sense. So Arjuna, you should fight free from sorrow, remembering that Arjuna's emotional meltdown on the battlefield was due to sorrow. We called it anticipatory grieving, where Sri Krishna looked at the family members on both sides of the battlefield and recognized that so many of them would die on the battlefield. Arjuna, with this anticipatory grieving, was paralyzed with grief. And this is this sorrow that he refers, that Sri Krishna refers to. So Arjuna, you should go ahead and fulfill your duty by entering into this battle, but do so free from sorrow, free from grief, knowing that, and here we bring in one more aspect of karma yoga. Going back to that Ishvara as karma pala data, as the giver of the fruits of actions. This is it's actually appropriate. We should bring it in here. And something I don't think we've discussed before. There was a comment on one of the classes. By the way, there are hundreds and hundreds of comments on all of these classes and videos. Because there are so many comments, I can't reply to them, obviously, but I do read every single comment. And one comment said, why doesn't Sri Krishna just help the Pandavas and Kauravas, help them reconcile? Help them love each other and embrace each other with brotherly love. Why doesn't he help them come and reconcile them? Actually, he tried. This is actually back into the story of the Mahabharata. Before the Bhagavad Gita takes place, the Pandavas actually sent Sri Krishna as an emissary to go and negotiate with the Kauravas. So Sri Krishna went to the Kauravas and tried his best to negotiate a settlement to avoid war, and he failed. Then this the one who commented on the video might, if that person were here, he says, well, wait a minute, if Krishna is as all-powerful, then is Ishvara, then why was Krishna unable to bring about this reconciliation? Let's go back to this idea of Ishvara as karma pala data, as the giver of the fruits of actions. The Kauravas, individually and as a family, had committed so many karmas, and Ishvara is the one to give them the fruits of their karmas. The Pandavas, individually and collectively, had committed so many deeds, karmas. It is Ishvara as karma paladata who must ensure that we receive the fruits of our deeds. So the reason Sri Krishna could not bring about reconciliation was because Sri Krishna is Ishvara, and Ishvara is karma paladata, and the Kauravas and Pandavas on the battlefield received the fruits of their earlier deeds. So according to the laws of karma, they met on the battlefield and reaped the consequences of their deeds. Okay, a little side issue there. Let's continue a little bit. Ye me matamedam nityam, ye me matamedam nityam, anutishtanti manavaha, anutishtanti manavaha, shraddhavanto nasuyanto, shraddhavanto nasuyanto, muchyante tepi karmabhihi, muchyante te bikarmabhihi. Yea, those who, now go down to the second line. Yea, manavaha, those people who anutishtanti, who follow, who practice what? Idam, now back up to the first line, who follow or practice idam matam, idam, this, matam, teaching, this me matam, this teaching of mine. Those who follow this teaching of mine, nityam, consistently at all times, those who always follow this teaching of mine, those who are, in the third line, shraddhavantaha, those who have faith in the sense of those who trust in the ability of these teachings. Now we're talking specifically the teachings of karma yoga. Those who trust that by using our daily activities as a form of spiritual practice that we can make progress on this path of spiritual growth. Those who have shraddha, who have faith or trust in this path of spiritual growth, those who anasuyantaha, those who are free from this, free from criticism, free from, many people will hear something and are looking for faults, fault finding. So when you see something or hear something, instead of appreciating the beauty or truth of what you've seen or heard, there are people who have a very negative attitude and who look for defects, look for what's wrong. And here Sri Krishna is talking about those who are free from that excessive critical nature, those who are free from fault finding, that habit of fault finding. Such people, in the last line, te, those people, muchyante, will be freed, karma bihi, from the bondage of their karmas. Those people will be freed from the bondage of karmas. To paraphrase the whole verse, those who follow these teachings of mine with trust in these teachings and free from this unnecessary criticism, they will become freed from the bondage of karma. Remember, being freed from the bondage of karma, bondage here in a very worldly sense means being the slave of raga dvesha. Most people are slaves to these compulsions in our minds and hearts, compulsions that I need that for my well-being, or I have to avoid that for my well-being. These compulsions hold us in a state of bondage, and the teachings of karma yoga can free you from the state of bondage, the bondage called by raga dvesha at a relative level. Then in a final level, these teachings of karma yoga can eventually lead you forward on the path to enlightenment. And through enlightenment, you become freed not just from raga dvesha, you become freed from being bound to a life of being born again and again and again, every life including some suffering, so you become free from any kind of possible suffering. This verse connects very closely with the next verse, so we'll conclude with the next verse. Ye tve tadabhyasu yanto, ye tve tadabhyasu yanto, nanutishtanti me matam, nanutishtanti me matam, sarvajnana vimudanstan, sarvajnana vimudanstan, vidhi nashtana chetasaha, vidhi nashtana chetasaha. So the prior verse talked about those who anutishtanti, those who follow me matam, who follow my teachings. Now we get the opposite case, ye too. But those who, now in the second line, na anutishtanti, those who do not follow me matam, those who do not follow my teachings. Why would they not follow my teachings? The adjective in the first line, abhyasuyantaha, because of their critical natures, they reject these teachings of karma yoga. They reject the teachings of Sri Krishna. They reject Sri Krishna as being an avatara of Vishnu. They reject the whole thing. So ye, those who na anutishtanti, those who do not follow me matam, my teachings, and up in the second line, etat, this teaching of mine, those who are abhyasuyantaha, those who reject all of my teachings. What about them? Sri Krishna addresses Arjuna. Arjuna, he addresses by saying in the last line, Vidhi. O Arjuna, Vidhi, you should understand. Arjuna, Vidhi, you should understand at the end of the third line, Tan. Understand them. Them who? Those who do not follow these teachings, those who reject the teachings of Sri Krishna in general, those who reject the teachings of Karma Yoga in particular. Vidhi Tan, Arjuna, understand them to be Sarva Jnana Vimudhan. Understand them to be Vimudha, totally confused about Sarva Jnana, about all of the, Jnana here means teachings, Sarva, all. Understand them to be confused about all of these teachings. Understand them, in the last line, to be Achetasaha. Achetasaha literally means one who is mindless. One who is mindless means one who doesn't understand, one who can't think properly. And Arjuna, understand them to be nashtan, to be literally to be destroyed. The consequence of not following these teachings, the consequence of not rising above this conventional worldly behavior of being the slave of raga dvesha, the consequence of not understanding these teachings is nashta. Your life is destroyed. Destroyed in the sense that you continue to live a life of suffering. You never ever come to a place of perfect peace and contentment. This is a good place to conclude. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhaveta Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat.